Today we're talking about Bendy.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Hi. Today we're looking at a small independent game that was available for free on Steam, but took off like a freight train, going out into the stratosphere and expanding into 12 chapters across two different versions of the game, one being Bendy and the Ink Machine, the other being Bendy and the Dark Revival, with 3 standalone games, as well as 4 projects already announced either in development or coming soon, with a movie attached, very much getting that Five Nights at Freddy's treatment of turning these small indie games from Steam into larger cinematic universes. So that's super exciting. And also, maybe not such a great idea because the whole point of Bendy is about creators losing control of their creations and those creations taking on a life of their own. Should we be doing this? Regardless, Bendy and the Ink Machine has taken off tremendously, and it's something that really sparked this whole Wednesday video poll that we've been doing. I heard a lot of people talking about it kind of in the Discord. Hey, you should do Bendy and the Ink Machine as Pokemon. And then other ideas would flow from that. What if you did SCPs? What if you did the Backrooms? What if you did more Five Nights at Freddy's, Undertale, Hazbin Hotel, Hell of a Boss? And from that spark came this whole type of video that I've been doing. So if you're watching this and you like these Wednesday video poll videos, you have Bendy and the Ink Machine to thank. So, I mean, without much further ado, why don't we get to the man himself and jump right on into Bendy and the Ink Machine as Pokemon. Hello, I'm the Thesterninator, but my friends call me Stern. Welcome to the channel, and around here we don't like to keep the demons waiting, so let's hop right into it. I knew going in that I was going to be drawing a lot of characters with the same type of feel, so I wanted to get that kind of out of the way and learn and understand what I wanted to do with that style. So I thought, well, why don't we start with something simple? The searchers in the game are just these inkish humanoids that just kind of slime their way through the various hallways and factory ambience. So I went with something like that, but made it cute. Thought, okay, what if Milcery was bad? What if it like hurt you when you ate it? So I thought, let's make an ink drop that is kind of the stand-in for our searchers and for a lot of those kind of vague ink-like enemies, and hopefully kind of capture a couple of the various aspects within that. So it's designed to look like if you were to drop an ink droplet into a vat of ink, or onto the ground, or onto a paper, whatever. It has this splash to it, which functions as these little army tendrils, which are also kind of creepy, so really fits the vibe for both, as well as the head appearing almost like the bounce back from a drop. I also wanted to keep those eyes because I feel like they are iconic, not just to Bendy, but to that whole era of cartoon. That Pac-Man-esque eye style really fits, and I feel like it gives a certain energy to a lot of the creations that we're going to be doing today. It kind of becomes a mainstay to this, much as it is a mainstay to the franchise of Bendy itself. And I kind of dig it. I understand why this works in a lot of older cartoons, and I love the idea of utilizing eyes in different ways in Pokemon. It was Generation 3 that really introduced a variation to eyes. I specifically think of Pokemon like Pelipper and Wingull, who have such a very specific style to their eyes, but also it really works. They don't look like eyes, but it works for some reason or another. So I wanted to bring in that energy and make it work with these type of cool eyes. The shine was a lot of fun, working with something that's more liquidated, and I'm hoping that it pulls off in a way that I'm hoping. But for the moment, we have Blotch, the Ink Spot Pokemon. It is a pure poison type and not very strong, but its shiny maintains a purplish color, because you know how much that I love my very, very underplayed shinies, my very difficult to spot shinies. So yeah, I dig it. I think it looks cool, very cute little guy. But we're not done yet. I played around a little bit with the idea of, okay, maybe it evolves into our Bendy type character, or maybe it's just kind of a counterpart or something that exists on the same lineage. I don't know. Let me know what you think, because I know that there's some really fun stuff that you could do with characters who are connected but not evolutionary lines of one another. And I like doing that. I think that's a lot of fun because it builds some story and some lore to the world as you go. But at the same time, it feels very much like it is a pre-evolution to our Bendy Pokemon. So, I don't know, I'm playing with the idea. Let me know down in the comments. I often ask you guys for help, and I'm super happy when I'm able to get it because you guys are a lot more talented in some other areas that I'm not. So let me know. As I always do, I'm going to ask if you can go down into the comments and let me know what abilities you think these Pokemon should have, because this is such a drastic departure from probably what we're used to with Pokemon, and at the same time very familiar. So let me know down in the comments what you think for abilities and dex entries of these guys. Like I said, it's very drastically different, but also very familiar. Bendy was more of a challenge than I thought, because he's already so simple of a character. He has a very Mickey Mouse type vibe to him that's just iconic. And so changing that up too much just makes the character not work, I think. That's my personal opinion. You know, making too many changes to make it look more Pokemon and less Bendy makes it 10 times less Bendy than I was initially thinking. So I just went with this idea of kind of making him feel like this wet, inkish type of material, adding that slight texture to it, and moving around some of the shapes a little bit. I moved the bow tie and instead replaced that with this almost chest guard looking piece. I actually took some inspiration and some design factors for this from Pokemon like Impidimp as well as Krogunk. I wanted to get kind of that variation in shape that Krogunk has across it. It looks like a toad, but at the same time has some differences that allow it to be its own thing. And Impidimp has the same noodly arms and body. So in the end, we came out with Bendink. Bendink is the Ink Spot Pokemon, very similar to the previous one we worked on, has the same type of shiny, very similar to the one we worked on before, and has a little bit more power. So it could work as an evolution to our previous one, to Blotch, but I don't know. I feel like there's so much more that could be done with having them have a relationship that's different than just an evolutionary line. Again, I turn to you guys in the comments. I know I said it last time, but I mean it. I'm curious, very, very curious what you guys think about that. It is still a pure poison type, but it won't be for long. But before we hop into the clear evolution of Bendink, I want to hop into one of my favorite characters, which is Boris. Oh, Boris. Oh, Boris. Boris, I don't know, the second that I saw that goofy looking, goofy like dog, I thought, that's my guy. I know I said dog. I know. He's a wolf. He's Boris the wolf. I understand. But I mean, look at him. And then, so I went with that, and I went the design elements of him looking very much like Goofy, looking very much like a dog, and played with that. I know he's a wolf, but giving him those wolf-type elements, at least in this stage, felt very much like it took away from the character. And I think that that was an interesting thing to come across with these designs, was how much of them are tied in that can't be changed. They're very simplistic characters, and making too many changes one way or another detracts from what they are. Like I said, very Mickey Mouse-esque. You see those 3 circles, you know immediately what you're looking at, you know immediately what that symbolizes. And Bendy and his assortment of characters fit that whole niche, which I know is kind of the point. Bendy is a play on Disney, and Bendy is a play as well on the mascot horror genre, so mission accomplished, I guess, to the team that worked on Bendy. It became very difficult to try and find ways to change up these characters. I think it's the reason why games like Kingdom Hearts don't reformat Mickey, they just utilize Mickey as is. But for this design, I wanted to incorporate some motion, some energy, some play into it. His tail I picture wagging wildly and just throwing ink everywhere that it goes. And I dig that. I love that a lot. I like the playful demeanor that this Pokemon has, especially given what comes to it. As I'm sure you already know, we're not going the Tom route. We're going something very different. But for the moment, we have Beforis, a play on, this is him before. So we have Beforis, the Grease Pokemon. Given that he fills almost a mechanic-style role in the games, I wanted to incorporate that in some way. So rather than making them all ink, 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 I decided to make this one grease. You know, like grease paint, the other type of paint used for performers and things. So he's the Grease Pokemon, a pure normal type, and he's not too powerful now, but let's go ahead and evolve this guy and see what we're able to come up with. If you follow my channel, then you know that I am no stranger to twisting and just kind of messing up really happy characters. Our Poriko Kostawis videos that drop on Mondays are specifically all about that. But little did I know that I'd be messing up 2 dogs this week, one in our Monday video, one in our Wednesday video. Friday's not looking good. But yeah, I wanted to focus on kind of the shape language and make some drastic changes to the initial Boris concept, at least the Boris kind of amalgam that we get towards the end of that chapter. So rather than focusing on let's make him a big beefy man, I focused on, okay, what are the ideas going on here? He's kind of Frankensteined together, and he's almost in this held together contraption. He has almost like a skull brace on to ensure that he can't move, and I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. What if we utilize those type of ideas and throw them on top of the already playful dog that we have and create this almost collar? You know, that's also used to kind of restrict sometimes a dog's movement and kind of label them as belonging to somebody. So I utilized that and created this collar iron lung type device that also kind of works as an ink barrel or a grease barrel in this instance, holding all of that grease with some leaking out, some forming the tail, and the head almost becoming this like keg spout on the top. I feel like it works even though it is drastically different from the concept, but I just thought if we start with this very playful type of dog, again, I know Boris is a wolf, if we start with this playful type of dog idea, turning it into just a big, beefy, burly man doesn't really work. We started off with an idea that is so drastically different from what Boris is so that we could make it feel our own without having to just recreate the character, that I had to go the direction that we were already going. And I'm happy with it. I think that it works. I really, really like this design, as sad and traumatizing as it is. So where we had Boforus before, here we have Borafter. This is the Grease Trap Pokemon. No longer the Grease Pokemon. This is the Grease Trap Pokemon. Is a normal steel, which would be the first of its kind in any Pokemon game were it to make its way there, apart from the Pokemon of every type combo video that I did a couple weeks back. It's gained a little bit of an oomph in its power, and for the shiny, I wanted to go again with that subtle shiny. It's much bigger, much more of a presence now, you can see by size. But moving into another character that we have here, we of course can't move on without Alice Angel. Alice Angel is a villain throughout part of the series, comrade throughout other parts, depending on which version you end up with. I went with that original interaction that we have with her, where she is this dastardly and scary individual that's torn between these 2 worlds of herself, being both an angel and a demon in control, being controlled by kind of this bendy, parasitic type of power. So I went with that and utilized these halo loops. One of the aspects of her that I really, really dug was how she has that halo just kind of hanging off of one of her horns. It's very cool and very dualistic of the character design, and I knew that I wanted to incorporate it. I was like, that's a fun shape language, that's a fun concept, and it's something that I can carry through to the rest of the design while still allowing that inky presence. So I did that, and I really had some fun with it. Rather than going for that washed out yellow that we utilized in Bendy, I wanted to kind of change up the colors a little bit while keeping some of that same vibe. So it's a little bit more grayed out. I kept the yellow for the eye. Mainly this is because when I do these type of exercises, often I'll have characters who have at least a different coloring. When you think of Five Nights at Freddy's, each character is symbolized by a different color. When you think of Undertale, each character is so wildly different from one another. Same thing with Poppy Playtime, they're also wildly different. But the thing with Bendy is a lot of them share the same palette, almost identically. So how do you play with that? How do you make that work? Well, I switched up just a little bit, playing around with what I could do while still trying to maintain that ink energy. I made some sacrifices here and some sacrifices there so that I could play up more of the power in some of the other design elements to this character. So we have Serapho, a play on Seraphim and Foe, the duality Pokemon. It is, of course, a fairy dark type. How could it not be? I did bring in that sepia tone type of color scheme for the shiny, which makes it look faded and worn out, very much like the character that we find in the game. She just doesn't want to be what she's been made to be. She's worn down. She's an older character who doesn't want to, exist in the facet that she does anymore. So I went with something that was old and faded. But we're not done yet. I told you earlier that we were going to hop back into Bendy and its evolution. And so why not? Let's go ahead and do that. As you know, Bendy doesn't always appear as the fun little demon that we see in like the mascot type stuff or on the covers of the game or on the Steam page. He has this darker side to him, and I wanted to make that. I couldn't not, right? Going into this video, it's something that had to happen, and I'm glad that it did. I really struggled with the design for this. Kind of, how do you get these rounded, gloppy shapes while also keeping something that feels twisted and messed up in so many different ways? So I decided to work on that like twisted melting body and form it into these like spiky spine-like shapes and tendrils that break off from the back and form the arms, and the feet are just melting into the ground while still having that big wide grin. I played with the idea of a tail, kind of making it more dragon-esque, but decided against it, so it ends up in the sketch, but it's not something that works its way into the final art. That's something, that little bit of art wisdom, if I can impart that, if I'm allowed to. Your sketch is not law. I often will do a sketch and change up so many things that by the end it can be sometimes unrecognizable to be the same character, which is cool, because then I have a sketch for a different character that I can work on. But for this one, I wanted that loose and gloppy type of energy to it. I wanted it to feel like it was just dripping and oozing, and I'm super happy with the way that all works out. I think that, again, working with that blackish inky color for everything, knowing that I had to do that, knowing that that was just the direction that these characters have to go, I really wanted to make the silhouette stand out for this guy. He's such an interesting character and such a fun design. I know that I've been talking a little bit on how the characters in Bendy are simplistic and kind of repetitive with color, but the characters truly are, the enemies as well, are all truly just marvels at what you could do with those limitations and what you can make work. The problem is, I'm not the guy who had the thoughts and ideas to put those on paper initially, so I'm trying to adapt to their styling with this, and then throw on Pokémon on top of that. That's where things get difficult. So, as much as I talk about the design elements of Bendy in certain ways, understand, I'm a fan of these designs. I think that it is such an interesting concept to look at the mascot horror genre, and rather than throw it on top of an animatronic or a person in a suit or a toy, you instead throw it over a cartoon, a two-dimensional cartoon, and almost give it, what if Roger Rabbit was just a little bit more evil? What if he was just a little bit darker of a character? And I think it works. I am appalled and astounded all at the same time by what these creators were able to do with these characters, and I hope that this can fit that mold. This is Blasphemink, the name coming from blaspheme, the unforgivable sin, as well as ink, of course. So this is the Ink Spot Pokemon as an evolution to Bendink that we had before. It is now a poison fighting type for that rage and power that it holds within itself. It's near our 600 club, but I didn't necessarily want it to feel too much like a pseudo-legendary, and that purple just takes over the color when it comes into that shiny, almost like if Muck had a vendetta. So I dig this thing. It is a massive monster, and it's one that I am the most proud of. And you're probably asking, hey, Stern, if you're done with this series here, where are our favorite characters? Where's the Projectionists and Sammy Lawrence, and where's the Butcher Gang? Well, therein lies the rub, my sweet summer child, because these videos that I do for our free Patreon polls that drop every Monday, I usually only have about 6 hours to get them done, edited, and put out. So that means that if you want more Bendy and the Ink Machine, you've got to keep voting. And while you're down in the description, go ahead and head over to our Discord as well, where we have a quickly growing group of individuals who are super talented in all the artwork that they put out, as well as just having really good conversation. We recently hit 1,000 members, so we're going to be doing a giveaway based on that, so head over there for more info. I've also been streaming a little bit more. Hello, bird. Are you the devil? Tell your friends. Let them know that, okay, I get, it's that, are you going to tell them? Oh no! How do I fight? I made a crossbow. And with all that said, it sounds like you know where to find me. I'll catch you in the next one. And before we go, I want to give a little bit of a shout out to some of the people who've been supporting this channel, specifically Teacup Cryptid, who is our master level trainer over on the Patreon. And hey, if you're interested in seeing your name in these credits, then make sure to head over to the Ko-fi or over to the Patreon, where you can become a part of this quickly growing community. We love you guys. We're so happy that you guys are a part of this group. And over on the Discord too, we're going to be doing a December advent calendar for art. So if you want to see your art showcased at the end of a video, that's a great place to go too, so that you can be a part of that community as well. And yeah, I guess I'll see you in the next one. Bye.